Okay, my loves. I know there are a lot of you that are out there that are really wondering, how do I even set boundaries anymore? Maybe you didn't grow up with great boundaries. Maybe boundaries weren't really modeled well for you, or maybe you were told that you cannot have boundaries. Maybe you're tired of being gaslighted in your relationships, and you're tired of feeling crazy all the time and guilty for trying to make a difference in your life. If this is you, then I want you to come schedule a call with me. Let's chat about the Unashamed Image Program. The Unashamed Image Program is geared towards you specifically. I am going to be helping you in our next upcoming session of the Unashamed Image. I am personally going to train you how to not feel crazy when someone is gaslighting you, how to be able to stand your ground, to keep your boundaries intact, and to also see through the bull crap. I am also going to be teaching you how to set really confident boundaries that you can really rely on. And I'm going to help you communicate them in a way that really makes sense. Basically, I'm going to help you live a life free of shame and on your terms. If you are ready and you are done feeling all the shame and guilt for trying to set boundaries, if you are not willing to live another moment the way you are right now and in somebody else's shadow, then this is the time to schedule that call with me. It's completely free, no pressure, just love, just support. Go to www.erinandersonthetraumacoach.com. Scroll down the page to where it says, Let's Chat About Working Together. Click on that button and it'll take you to my booking page. If you're ready to live the unashamed life, schedule that call. Let's get you in the Unashamed Image Program, my loves. From my heart to your heart. Bye. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Other Side of the Struggle by Erin Anderson Betrayal Trauma Coaching. I'm Erin Anderson, your host. If you're just joining this podcast, we talk about how I healed from my betrayal trauma and some of the things I've learned along the way as I continue to heal and as I coach other men and women through their traumas. Now, before we dive into this week's episode, let me tell you a little bit about how you can contact me. I have a few free Facebook groups. One of the groups are for women who are going through betrayal trauma due to a husband's addiction. In this group, women are able to voice how they feel about the struggle they are going through with the addiction, find a camaraderie of other women going through similar situations, get some detailed coaching from me, plus any other events or offers that I have going on. You can find me there at www.facebook.com/groups/the other side of the struggle. Or if you're looking for a place where you and your spouse can connect, have other really brilliant minds and coaches, therapists alike, I have some great colleagues that you can chat with as well as me in the group Positive Healing for LDS Marriages and Relationships, www.facebook.com/groups/Positive Healing for LDS Marriages and Relationships. I also have a Facebook page, www.facebook.com/BetterThanTheBetrayal. You can also find me on Erin Anderson Betrayal Trauma Coach on Instagram, or you can also find me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/in/Erin-the Trauma Coach. So, I have been promising a gift for a while for my listeners. It's ready to give away. I'm so excited. If you are ready to understand how your trauma is actually a building block to how amazing you are, not the wrecking ball, then download my free Heart of Gold meditation. In this meditation, it will take you through a deeper understanding of how a difficult trauma can help you realize how strong you are. All of those pieces of your heart that are broken because of the trauma and because of the pain you have gone through are actually being healed together by gold. So, this is also one of my first meditations that I ever went through to regain my self-confidence, to understand how amazing I truly am, and how each one of the things that happen in my life, whether good or bad, are things that are shaping me for who I truly am and helping me see my mission and purpose and live my paradise life. So if you would like that, and if you want to gain a deep love and appreciation for yourself, then this meditation is just for you. And when you realize that the heart beating inside of your chest is truly an inspiration that is guiding your life and helping you build your paradise life with self-confidence that's difficult to shake, I think you will love this freebie. So go and download it at https://erinanderson.kartra.com/page/heart of gold. And don't worry, I will make sure to link that in the description below. With that, let's dive into this week's episode. What's up, guys? Oh, I'm so excited you're here to talk about boundaries with others. Now, there's a really good chance you've been looking forward to this particular episode because the last 2 weeks, and if you haven't checked them out, go do it. But the last 2 weeks we've talked about creating boundaries with God and creating boundaries with self. And both of those are foundational pieces to being able to create boundaries with other people. So this week we are talking about using the boundary blueprint, which is basically God's steps for helping us create really powerful boundaries for ourselves, for others, and for abundance. But like I said, too, you can't create a good boundary with someone else if you don't already have solid boundaries with yourself. And we'll get into the whys of that, I think, in just a few minutes. But first, let's talk about what boundaries give you. They help create that safe space. And a lot of people really struggle with boundaries because it's something that a lot of people haven't been taught or told that it's okay to have them. A lot of people, if they've been dealing with extensive trauma for a long time and a long period in their lives, they probably tried to stand up for themselves at some point or another and just been shot down after shot down after shot down. And they've learned that it's safer to not have them. And it's not true. I would love to dispel that for you today if you're sitting in that boat, because just because somebody chooses to act like totally inappropriate or respond inappropriately to your boundary doesn't mean that you're the one that's in the wrong. It's okay for them to act like really inappropriate while you hold the boundary for yourself and remember who you are, that I don't act inappropriate back. I can have self-respect and joy even if somebody is trying to tear that down. I do not need to trade my joy for their misery just to get them off of my back. They're okay to throw their fit. And I am simply just going to sit here like, okay, well, that's how you feel. That's how you feel. And then whatever, right? So I just want you to know that it's totally fine to allow somebody to have a literal toddler tantrum to you being solid with yourself, okay? And one of two things will usually happen. Your boundary will push people who do not belong in your life out. There will be people who refuse to abide by your boundaries, and they kind of just naturally choose out of your life. But then there are the people who really, really do want a relationship with you. They're not sure how to have boundaries with themselves or boundaries with others, or at least healthy ones. And so when you show up that way and they really do want to choose in, it sends the message to them of, oh, okay, that's what that feels like. You know, she can, or he, depending on who it is that's listening, but he or she can accept me for all of my flaws, tell me, hey, I love you, and I believe that you're better than that. And let's go create that. Like, what is it that you see in yourself? Do you see yourself really being someone who throws a fit if somebody's like, hey, I'm not okay with you touching me, or whatever it is. Hey, I'm not okay with you saying that to me. That felt really disrespectful. The people that want in will work through it with you. So how do you feel about boundaries? It's a legitimate question. A lot of people come to me really struggling with this concept. They often feel guilty for setting boundaries, or they're not sure about even what a boundary is. They've heard the term, set the boundary, things like that, but that's really confusing for them because it's not something that's well taught in our society nowadays, right? They know that boundaries are really important to having healthy, constructive, supportive, and wonderful relationships, but why? And oftentimes they also know that they feel like their boundaries are being violated, but they can't quite pinpoint what the boundary is that's being violated. That's why I've created the Clarifying and Creating Your Boundaries free PDF. You can find out what your boundaries are, how to tune in to what the boundary needs to be, and how to effectively create and communicate your boundary so that way you stay in this place that respects you, respects the other person, but also gives you the confidence in your boundaries so that way you stop being gaslighted, disrespected, and unseen. Having your boundaries really clear gives you a voice and also helps the other person stay in accountability with themselves. So that's not a role that you have to take on anymore. So if you are ready to really have clear boundaries, to really understand what your role is in the boundary, and to give yourself some safety and some protection against people that might try to gaslight you or are just being disrespectful, go grab my Creating and Clarifying Your Boundary PDF at erinandersonthetraumacoach.com. And while you're there, let's schedule a call with me. Come have a chat with me so that way I can really, really help you master this particular skill, creating boundaries, clarifying the boundary, communicating that boundary, and so that way I can also help you have relationships that show up to support you, cherish you, and love you. And that's a really big thing to watch for. But you first and foremost have to have self-confidence, because when the winds blow from the toddler tantrum. If you have a good self-confidence and you know that it's okay for you to set this boundary with this person no matter how they respond or react, whether they like it or not, you can still stand firm no matter what they choose to do. Okay? So, really important to know your own boundaries and to set boundaries with yourself. It gives you a foundation to work off of, and you also know what boundaries do work and don't work. So, like, I really respect my integrity. I respect my intelligence. I have a lot of self-respect, and I don't allow someone else to try and get me to disrespect myself in any way. So there's that boundary. And when somebody comes into my space and they're, let's be honest, it's usually subconscious, but when they're showing up and being disrespectful and trying to tear me down, whether it be conscious or subconscious, I love myself and respect myself enough to say, hey, not okay. I think you can do better than that. And let's talk about like what it is you actually are trying to create with me. What you're doing right now is actually set in destruction. But instead, why don't we work on creation? Talk to me about how you're feeling. What are some of your thoughts? I will listen to you. I'm a good listener. I have set the boundary with myself that if I want good relationships with you and with others, then I have to be a good listener. And so I'll listen to you, but you need to be okay with me asking questions so we both have clarity and we can move forward from that clarity. And you know what? I have set so many boundaries with other people from this, and truthfully, relationships that used to feel toxic to me have now really blossomed and have gone from toxic to supportive. And so, you know, these boundaries don't just keep people out or bad influences out, but they actually create your inner circle. And the people that really, really do want to be part of that inner circle, it gives them the standard to be at, and they will meet that standard. It is actually a natural thing for people that want to be around you. So let's talk about the 5 different kinds of boundaries here. There's a physical boundary, a sexual boundary, a talking boundary, a listening boundary, and an energetic boundary. Now, some of those, I'm pretty sure you're like, huh? What? You know, like, what's an energetic boundary? So let me go ahead and explain that to you. A physical boundary. Let's start there. A physical boundary is what you do and do not allow on your person, around your body. If you don't want somebody to hug you or touch you, there are some people that you are just not okay with anything physical with. And I have a few people like that, you know. I can think of a few. I'm not going to mention names, but I can think of a few that if they were to approach me, I would literally have to tell them, you need to stay over there. I'm not okay with you coming any closer. Now, obviously, like, sometimes I'm just really mad at my husband. We're married, it happens. Or I'm mad at my kids, and I am just not in the mood to take on a hug right then. And so I'll tell them I need to process my anger right now, and I need to process what my thoughts and my feelings are right now, so that way I can get to truth. I feel like if I were to accept your hug right now, it would throw that off balance. You may or may not agree with me. That's okay. But that's just where I'm at right now. So if you could please take that hug and tuck it away for me, I promise I will be in reception mode once I come to a better understanding of how I think and feel right now. Let's talk about sexual boundaries, okay? I have been really blessed that this isn't something that has really been violated a lot with me. But yes, there have been a few incidences, and not with really anybody that's close in my inner circle. But if there was someone, a very clear thing to say is, I am not okay with that, and I feel that's super inappropriate. Because a sexual boundary is a very, very vulnerable boundary. There's a reason why, we save our, like, LDS people, save themselves for marriage in a sexual place, is because it's such a vulnerable space that you need to have a very trusting commitment from another person before you can be that vulnerable. And that's why we save ourselves for marriage. But like, say my husband did something that was not okay with me in a sexual manner, I would let him know, hey, babe, I'm not okay with that. That just doesn't feel right. It kind of makes me feel a little bit dirty, creepy, crawly skin. Ugh. So, explain to me why you would like that, how you feel like it's okay. But I would like it if I will listen to you, to still respect my decision at the end. Be open, especially with your spouse, be open to learning and coming to a better agreement, a same page. But you do not have to honor any kind of sexual requests, even in the marriage. It is more important, and I have found this to be very, very true. It is more important for you to be in integrity with yourself and allow yourself time to heal than it is to be coerced into something you're not okay with. So let's go into the talking boundary. Talking boundaries are honestly probably violated a lot in the others tier. And not just by our relationships. This is something that we do ourselves, and it's probably the one that we violate the most. That and the listening boundary. So, like, a talking boundary is, like, violation is like when somebody interrupts you, doubts your experience, yells or screams, ridiculing, gaslighting, sarcasm, blame, lying, deceit, criticizing. Even facial expressions can be a talking boundary violation, but you kind of get the basic idea of what a talking boundary violation would be. So if somebody is going to violate that, one of the things that I personally do is I say, hey, I wasn't finished with my sentence. I am sure what you have to say is like really important and I really do want to hear it, but I would really like to be able to finish my thought before I forget it. Are you able to hold on to that for a second? And so that's a really good way to be respectful. Um, Lying or gaslighting. So there's that one. So if somebody's lying to me, I have no problem saying that. Hey, you know what? This feels like a lie. This doesn't feel true to me. This feels like you're trying to get me to see things one way, and for your own personal gain. Um, Tell me how that's not the case. That doesn't open the door for you to believe them, but what it does is it can help somebody, or it causes somebody to talk themselves in circles. So if somebody's lying to you and you ask them questions like, I don't feel like you're possibly being completely honest with me, and I don't feel like you're telling me the truth. Um, so why don't you help explain this to me? Ask the questions. And if it consistently feels like something's off, oftentimes they're going to talk themselves into circles. But even if you're talking to someone who is very good at manipulation, it's still okay to say, I'm not buying it. I still don't feel like it's true. And somebody that's really worthy of your inner circle will actually help you trust them by being okay with the fact that you don't in that moment. Like, that's actually a way for them to build trust. That's the first step. A listening violation is like when you are talking, and so they're actually kind of like go hand in hand. If you're talking and they're formulating a response before they even hear, and so they don't actually get the chance to understand where you are at personally. That is something that something that a listening boundary violation would do. Or if you're talking and they just totally block you out and they just stop listening altogether, that is also a boundary violation. And so what I do in those incidences is I simply state, it doesn't sound like you were listening, and that makes me kind of question if you really do understand my position or not. In order for you to be able to help me understand your position, I feel like it's very important for you to understand mine. Then we can get on the same page. It's not about my perception. It's not about your perception. It's about our perception and what we can do to create the thing that we want to create, right? Energetic. Now, that's one that a lot of people are like, what is an energetic boundary? And it's basically like, so energy, a lot of people are like, what is energy work, right? And I will tell you, it's something you definitely do need to be careful with, because energy work can bring you both love and light, peace and joy, but it can also bring you that darkness. And it just depends on who you choose to trust and who teaches loving principles, because energy at its highest is basically the work of charity, the highest form of love. And somebody who, like, some of my energetical gifts, I'll give you that. is I have a really high intuition. I feel like I can understand people very quickly. Sometimes even before, and you guys are probably going to be like, isn't that a listening boundary violation? No, it's not. Because I always give somebody the opportunity to explain themselves and make sure that I really truly do understand where that person is coming from. But I do have a really high intuition, and I can often tell where a person is at, what they're thinking, what they're feeling before they really share anything with me. So there is that. But an energetic boundary, you can tell if it's been violated if you're feeling overwhelmed by the negative thoughts, feelings, and responses, or just their kind of energy, walking around all day and just grumpy and negative, and it's just a heavy energy for you to take on. And someone who is constantly negative is someone who is constantly actually violating that energetic boundary. And so one of the things that help me to fix an energetic boundary is to actually show more love to myself and joy in that moment. Hey, you seem kind of negative today. Just kind of like things have been a little hard and a little heavy for you. I just want you to know that I think you are. And then I will explain like a very good thing about themselves. So like with my kids, hey, I can tell that, cleaning the kitchen is a bit overwhelming for you. It still needs to be done. But I just want you to know that I believe that you are a very responsible, wonderful kid who really helps me out and has my best interest and your best interest in mind. And besides, like, you really wanted that Lego set, remember? And it's something you're working towards when you are helping me out. So those are kind of like some of the ways that I deal with energetic boundaries. There's also the energetic boundary violation of, I would just say, plain evil. And in that case, if I'm feeling something evil in my space, I literally pull on my princess pants because I am a princess of heaven. I understand that very well. That is something that God has communicated very clearly to me. And so I literally say, I know who you are. You know who I am. I have no part in your evil. Be gone, or else I call upon the powers of Christ to destroy you. And anything that is just straight from the devil, it tends to kind of run away, yipping and yiping, gnashing of teeth kind of a thing. So those are your 5 different kinds of boundaries. Now let's talk about God's blueprint and how we can use that blueprint to make sure that these boundaries are clear, concise, and that we can create beautiful relationships that respect every single one of our boundaries. So God's blueprint, He knows what He wants. He knows what He wants to create with us. And He knows how to create it. He's very clear on those things. He knows His role in the relationship. He understands the benefit of the boundary and he communicates that very clearly. He respects our agency and he's patient and he shows up in love, so he understands what he needs to do, and his actions. And he communicates very well and very clearly. So, if we take that blueprint and we plug it into our relationships with others, we'll say, like, what we'll do is we first and foremost need to know what we want to create in the physical, sexual, talking, listening, and energetic boundaries. Okay? And so it's something to sit down and actually consider and create as you're listening to this podcast. Know what you want to create in those things and who you want to create those things with. And the how comes down to communication and your willingness to be consistent. So like a physical boundary I've set for myself and that I need other people's support in is that I go on a 4-mile walk every day, first thing in the morning. So a couple of boundaries I have to set in place is to make sure breakfast and lunch is done the night before. So my kids aren't leaving the house hungry and without food. And then I also have to let everybody know, hey, I have to be very clear. I am going to be leaving at XYZ time. I won't be back until XYZ time. So in that meantime, I want you guys to get up and, all these kinds of things. And then when they don't, they actually end up having to suffer natural consequences. God knows his role in the relationship. So I think about my relationship with my husband. Like, I have a physical role with him, a sexual role, talking role, a listening role, energetic role, but all of them tie back to someone who shows up in confidence, respect, love, and patience. And, I will be honest, I think sometimes I still need to grow in some of those areas, but I know that my role in my relationships is usually connected to a deep love that I have for them. When people feel like they are just like abundantly loved by you, the people that are totally uncomfortable with that and would try to destroy it tend to shy away from that. They can't handle that. But those that are like, yay, they tend to draw closer into you because they know that they can be themselves and all of the hills and valleys that you're not going to judge them because you've got your hills and valleys too. We've got things that we all have to work on. And your role is to be loving and not be judgmental. And so they have a safe space to grow with you. That they're not going to grow in your shadow, but they're going to grow in your sunlight. And that's something that God does very clearly for us. He understands the benefit of the boundary. So that's something you have to communicate really clearly to your inner circle. So if you want to create this boundary, you also have to be able to talk about the benefit of that boundary. Okay, guys, I am going for a walk at this time to this time in the morning. That means I'm not going to be here to do your lunches and your breakfast first thing in the morning. So I need you guys to help me do that the night before. I need you guys to get up on time because the benefit is you're organized, you can grab things quickly, you have food in your stomach, and you can make it to the bus on time. And so your whole morning just tends to go much smoother, a lot better, and it's not so chaotic. So there's the benefit, okay? Maybe the benefit of a boundary for my husband. Honey, I need you to see me more as an equal partner in the finances. And this is a big one that a lot of women struggle with. I need you to see me as a more equal partner in the finances. I need you to trust me, and I would really like it if you would please give me an X amount of money so that way I feel like I have some freedom to work within when it comes to money. And the benefit is that I will trust you more. I will trust your ability to create, to budget, and to talk to me with respect and love. I will trust you to create something with me. And, talking about those things, you can ask your spouse, well, what is it that you want to create with this money? Why are you afraid to allow me space here? And it, especially too, if you don't react to their negative reactions, and you could even set a boundary there. You could say, hey, you know what? I'm feeling really angry right now. I'm feeling totally unheard. And I don't want to communicate from that space because I feel like it will just be miscommunication and nothing will be resolved or achieved. So I'm going to go understand my thoughts and my feelings a little better. I'm going to process them, and then we will pick up this conversation later. When's a good time for you? But most of the time, I do believe that husbands want to create something with their wives, but they don't realize that leaving their wives out of the finances doesn't create anything with them. It just leaves them out of the process. And that her advice and her thoughts are actually valuable. And finances are all about value. And so when you create value together and trust, your finances actually do better. Go figure. Okay. And that's a benefit of that boundary. He respects our agency. So people don't always respond well to boundaries. And to be honest with you, most of the time they're going to test and see how solid that boundary actually is. And so they're going to throw a fit, get big, throw their pin feathers, all that kind of stuff. Just to see if it's going to throw you off. And if it doesn't, it actually creates a sense of safety because you're respecting their right to be a toddler in the moment. And that's why I call them toddler tantrums. And it's because that's what they totally are. They're toddler tantrums. But respecting their right to throw a fit is actually one of the best ways to gain respect. And so for me, when somebody's like freaking out at me, I do one of two things. I simply say, hey, I respect your right to feel the way you do about this. But it doesn't change it. However, the way you're reacting right now makes it so it's really hard for me to understand and hear your point of view. So when you calm down and you can feel like you can respond or talk to me calmly and rationally, then we can become then we can come to the same understanding. We can kind of grow closer to the same page. and then I leave the conversation. Or if they follow me around and they just like are insistent on being a toddler, I acknowledge, okay, I can tell you're really having a hard time with this, but is throwing a big fit making you feel better? Is throwing a big fit around me making you feel better? Do you think it's really making you feel more heard? Because it's not on my end, and I'm not feeling very respected by you. In order for me to actually hear you, I need to have that respect from you. So until you can show up that way, this conversation needs to be done. Okay? He's patient and he shows up in love. And the reason being is because he's very clear about who he is. He is love. Very loving. Patience, truth, peace, joy, safety. Those are all actually bred out of love. And so when we understand ourselves as love, that's that crown of heaven, and that we deserve that crown, that we can wear that crown. When we understand that, and we understand it well, and we believe that we deserve that title, because if we didn't, there would be no need for a savior. He died for you because he knows you, he loves you, and he respects you. He knows how powerful you are, and he recognizes your title as Prince and Princess of Heaven. Now, somebody who truly, truly is loyal to someone who has such a high title is willing to put their life down for that person. So it's really important to understand that we are who God says we are. And so when we show up in love, that doesn't mean that it's always fluffy. No, Christ called people hypocrites to their face. I have literally told my husband, you're throwing a tantrum, and it doesn't look good on you. And sometimes that's really loving, but also something that's super loving is reminding them about who they are. Babe, you're a general of heaven. A general of heaven doesn't feel the need to get big and loud. He remembers he's full of love and respect and can navigate uncomfortable situations because he understands that peace. And I think that comes into the last piece here. He communicates well and clearly. When you set proper and clear boundaries with yourself that you abide by and you live, then it also helps you communicate those boundaries and their benefits. So one of the things that I have set a really clear boundary on for myself is that I do not talk negatively to myself in any way. It's a very firm boundary that I do not berate myself. And it's because nothing good is ever created from that. If I'm patient with myself and I just recognize, whew, that was a blunder, definitely could do better there. And I leave it at that. And then I look at my strengths and I say, okay, I am going to fortify myself by maybe taking a little extra time for me. It sounds like I'm feeling a little stressed and overwhelmed, and so I'm going to go take a 2-hour long bath. Something like that. or I just really honor my self-care. I do some journaling, I do meditation, I do tapping. All of those, by the way, really draw in good energy. And I think communication and it comes from that space. If you honor that boundary with yourself, then you can communicate it very clearly to other people as well. I don't allow myself to speak that way. What makes you think I'm going to allow you to? I don't allow myself to speak negatively about myself. What makes you think that I'm okay with you speaking negatively about you? I want you to have the best beliefs about yourself, because then you can live your highest and best life. You can live your dreams, and you can create your dreams, and you can dream when you have those self-boundaries in place, and you can help other people come into that circle and create your dream life too. So this is God's boundary blueprint, how we can use it to apply to our relationships with others. Consider that blueprint and how you need to apply it also to those 5 different kinds of boundaries. I'll say them again: physical, sexual, talking, listening, and energetic. And so consider how the boundary blueprint can help strengthen each one of those. Also, if you haven't done it so far, go make sure you download the Heart of Gold meditation. That is a great way to also help you start gaining the self-confidence you need to be able to start setting some really clear, concise boundaries, because it will help you see yourself and the things you've gone through in a really, really positive and clear light. Next week, guys, we are talking with Daniel Adams. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about this episode. We're talking about boundaries with abundance, and it is absolutely a episode you do not want to miss. Daniel shares some really, really juicy, amazing information. So, with that, you guys, I will talk to you next week. Mwah! Bye. Hey guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me today and listening in on this podcast.